All right, everyone. So I'm going to do my recap for today. I'll just go over the trades I took. Finishing the day right now at 2,900, watching BBLG. This is the one that I've done the best on, up 13,000 on BBLG, down 10,000 on ISIG. So before I get into the recap, I'll remind everyone, as always, of my disclaimer that in case you don't already know, trading is risky. Most beginner traders lose money, and my results are not typical. The typical experience of a beginner trader is, in fact, losing money. Now, we don't track the typical result of our students because we don't have access to their broker statements, as you guys all know. So we'll disclaim that we don't have any reason to believe our students will be performing better or worse than day traders on average. So day trading is risky. Keep that in mind. My results are not typical. So BBLG up 88% right now. This one has a flat top at 676. It was my second trade of the day. My first trade was on ISIG, and you know, I had the discipline not to trade it pre-market as it was squeezing up here. Well, actually, I took one trade in my small account for the live trading archives, but that was sort of a negligible trade, and I wasn't super confident on it either. I sort of was like, I don't know if this is going to work. But I did take one, which I can show you here. So let's see. All right, so ISIG. Let me see if I update the chart for you. So trying to add more live trading archives for students. It looks like I didn't update the chart. That's annoying. Well, that's not super helpful. So anyways, bought 166 shares, which you can see here. Click the buy button, got filled at 70. Put the profit target, Control P. That's just 15 cents, I think, above the current price at 28.14, and ended up you know, taking a second, but getting filled as it popped that level. First it pops up, and then there you go. So profit target hotkey, of course, works well. Small size, easy to be nimble and get in and out quickly. So that trade was at 853. So if we look back on the 5-minute chart, it was actually right here. And you know, I was really sort of half on the fence with it, with that trade. I was like, I don't know. And then I just kind of impulsively clicked the buy button. I was like, all right, well, I guess I'm in. Let's see if this goes ahead and breaks through the high, which was about 27.94. That was the level I wanted to see break. And it did. It went up to 28.61, but I didn't trade it in my big account at that time. I waited until the open. In fact, I waited until just before the biggest red candle, highest volume red candle of the day, right here. I got in, it popped up, and I got in at 26.75. That was where I clicked the buy button. I filled at 26.90, 16 cents of slippage, 6,000 share entry. Hits a high of 27, doesn't break, flushes $2 a share down to 25, and I was down $10,000 in the first 2 minutes of the day. And I didn't take any trades pre-market, and I was so kind of cautious. I was like, I don't know if it's really worth it. We don't have a leading gapper. I don't see anything that really looks good. I think I'm just gonna sit on the sidelines, and then I sat out this move, and then sure enough, right at the open, I take a trade and, got smoked on that. So that was my first trade of the day, which was actually my worst trade so far of the year, $10,000 loss. I shouldn't have bought right under the VWAP, and I knew technically there was some risk on that trade because it was underneath the VWAP and didn't have a technical a fundamental catalyst. So anyways, didn't trade that one very well. BBLG was on our gap scanner this morning, gapping up 12%, not a huge gap. 5.8 million share float, and it squeezes up and halts at the open. Halts up at 448 right here. So on resumption, I bought at 448, and it squeezes into the next halt at 514. Or it was actually at 97 or something like that. There were some weird orders that were going through on this one. Anyway, so made, I think on that first trade, a couple $1,000. And again, on that first trade, I was cautious. I was down 10,000 on the day, and I was saying, listen, we don't have an obvious gapper. These are the type of days that can very easily roll over a spiral and turn into, for me, $15,000, $20,000, $30,000 red days. Last year, my average red day was $30,000. So I want to minimize those types of red days as much as possible, and that sometimes means just stopping and walking away. So on the first trade, I went kind of small. I made a couple $1,000. It was down, 7,000 on the day, 8,000. Then it halts, and then on the next trade, dip and rip. This was a nice one. This one got me on this dip and rip here up to 558. I think on that one back to green, or back to about break even. And then into this next halt, I did a dip and rip and was up 4,000, and then dipped and sold as it pulled back and was up only about maybe 1,000 on the day. So I was like, all right. But then I got back in, it curls back up, got myself back to up 3,000, but then did another dip at 650. It drops down into a halt and was actually down 500 on the day. Then another dip, comes back up to 650, got myself back up $2,000 or whatever it was. Tried trading in this area, a little bit of a chop, nice bottoming tail candle here, got that trade up to the high here of 78. I think my high a day was about $4,000 profit today, net on the day. So another 1,000 from where I'm at now. So I guess I was up about 14,000, just 15,000 maybe on BBLG at one point. Right now you can see it's pulling back again off of that flat top at 78. So today just doesn't feel like the day to push it any longer. I've already started deep in the red, recovered to green, then went back to just below green, down 500. Then now, $3,000 is it my daily goal? Obviously not. For those that have been tuned in for a while, it's not the daily goal, but it's a green trade, and so that's fine. I think what's most disappointing for me today is that for trader rehab folks, we didn't have a really good trade today. The first trade I took on ISIG, I had said this one's risky, the spreads are big, I don't know, and I said as I took it, I was like, this is kind of a risky trade, but I'm going to do starter size. 3,000 shares, and then added another 3,000. 6,000 shares is starter size for me, and I still, with a starter, lost $10,000. So we didn't have a good, so that trade wasn't good for trader rehab. These trades in here were all pretty risky with the spreads. This trade here, it ended up working, but it was kind of a little confusing. I didn't think it was super obvious, so that one wasn't really ideal. And then BBLG, the first trade at 448 on the resumption, the dip and the rip for the breakthrough 450. I mean, that one I guess was the best one, but that was at 9:43. It was already getting a little later into the morning when usually on a good day, I'm green before the opening bell at 9:30 from pre-market action. So I think that's what I'm a little disappointed about today, that we didn't have a really, really good kind of trade for students in trader rehab or doing maybe small account challenges. And then because I was red, I had to kind of over trade to get myself back to green, which, is not, it's not the best example to set, because you shouldn't really over trade. When you're at the level of experience that I'm at, your intuition can kind of dictate, is this the day where I'm going to overtrade, and I know I'm doing it, but we've got something that I can trade, and so I'm going to do it. Or is it a day where I really should just walk away? And I was considering just walking away, but obviously we had this 80% squeeze on BBLG, and that was a good opportunity. Made some money on it, recouped the loss, and I'm walking away with some small profit, but it ended up just not being a super great day. So if we kind of unwind that back to the beginning, that rule of thumb, no gappers, was a real problem. We didn't have a super obvious gapper. We had some gappers, but BBLG, the one that made the biggest move, there was no indication to me at that point that it was going to do that. It was up only 12% as a gap. It had made this pre-market move up to 550, but then pulled back. So I didn't expect it to do that, not even close. The leading gapper, ZNGA, this one, no interest in that. It's a billion share float. CPSR, well, this one, very volatile, and I didn't feel this was safe to trade, so no trades on that. APR, this one is a buyout, so there's no trades on that one. MOLN, this one had made a big move, but then pulled back. So, today was one of those days where we just didn't really have a super obvious gapper. So for those in trader rehab, I think the best rule of thumb probably was to keep it as a no trade day. And to be honest, I kind of wish that I had just not traded today, because even though I have some profit, I went down $10,000 and then had to spend the rest of the morning sort of over trading to try to get it back. And the best trades on BBLG would have been, early in the move, but I didn't have the risk tolerance to take big size back here at 440 because I was already down 10 grand. I couldn't take a 50,000 share position of it down there and then risk going down and losing 20 grand on it and being down 30 on the day, right? So I had to start my first trades on BBLG with smaller size just to try to see whether or not I could get dialed in on it and to make sure I didn't start losing more money. So, so the first trades ended up working, so got some profit, but then it's extended. So then I can't really take big size because now it's too extended. And so that's, psychologically just speaks to how you can sort of end up putting yourself at a disadvantage, if you don't have the patience and you end up taking that really unnecessary loss, which is exactly what I did this morning, going right into the open, took a stupid loss, and it threw me off for the rest of the day. So, I'm grateful that doesn't happen often, but it happens from time to time. So last week was a great week, really good first week of trader rehab. Good, just across the board. The first trade I took every day last week was decent. The first trade I took today was terrible, and I'm bummed about that. I never like to have that happen. So. And it threw me off a bit for the rest of the day. So even though I did okay on BBLG, all things considered, a move from 450 up to 650, I didn't really capture that much profit on it because, like I said, I was already backed up against the ropes when I started trading it. I sort of thought, well, being red 10 grand, maybe I should just call it here. And so anyways, I managed to be green. I don't want to beat myself up too much. I got green, but I'm going to try to come back tomorrow and do better. So, I think that's always a good philosophy, regardless of how you finish a day, to try to do a little bit better the next day. And I am grateful that I recovered that loss. I'm grateful that we had BBLG, because if we didn't have this one, I wouldn't have recovered the loss. There was nothing else to recover the loss on. There was IRTC, but this one is very expensive. And these can be account wreckers when you have something go up 30, 40 points like that. At that price range, the spreads, you can get on the wrong side of that a lot very quickly, and it can be really painful. So no trades on that one. DWAC, I saw it popped up and I was able to restrain myself. I just thought, nah, you know what, this one, I can't do that. It's too much risk. So yeah, so focused in on BBLG. Thankful that we got it today. Gave me a bit of a bailout from a unnecessary loss at the open. ISIG, had I been willing in my big account to jump on it in this move, I could have made some money, but I hesitated. The spreads were kind of big. The volume was sort of light. I sort of felt like, I don't know, I could get wrecked on this one. And just trying to take that first trade, thinking about trader rehab, it's got to be a good trade, and I just didn't see one aside from that curl there at 27.75 for the small account. But even that was kind of risky. So hey, it's back to VWAP. I don't know. Well, I think it's worth keeping an eye on. Excuse me. The reason I like it generally is that it's not that far off of the high of this recent move. This move up to 32 and then the move up to 35. So, it's if let's just say I keep this one on another chart, and tomorrow or any day in the next week or whatever, I see it surging up and I see that there's breaking news on it. A news headline could be all it takes for this to have another nice big green day and retest 32. And then if it breaks 32, you're looking at 35, and it could. But typically, most times we trade parabolic momentum. This is pretty much what we get. You get a couple of days of really hot action, a pullback. you know, maybe the first daily candle to make a new high, or, you know, a gap in some news like you got sort of here, you know, but usually that's about it. And I mean, you could look at so many charts and that's usually what you see. So it's kind of optimistic to think that it would break 32 and we'd be trading it up around 40 or 50, but it's definitely optimistic. It's not impossible, but it's certainly optimistic. So we'll wait to see, I guess, at this point, if there's some news on it. But yeah, and then BBLG, worth keeping an eye on. You know, rest of today, it's still at the volume weighted average price. So if it can hold this level, 676, daily level had room to 647 right here, and then 712. Again, not far off those levels, which are pretty critical. So yeah, you never know. But as it sits right now, it's a little past 11, and it's kind of, you know, it's just sort of hanging out down here. It's range bound. I wouldn't be interested in trading it at the moment. So yeah, I guess that's that's about it for me. That's my recap. Bit of a choppy morning. We'll come back and try again tomorrow. Hopefully tomorrow we have a better looking gap scanner for Momo traders that are trading to the long side. You know, that's what I'd be hopeful for. And if we don't, then maybe tomorrow I can strengthen that muscle of discipline a little bit better than I did today, or flex that muscle a little bit better than I did today, and actually have the restraint just to sit on my hands if there's nothing that looks great. Because ISIG was a B quality setup, and it just goes to show, you know, even with only starter size of 6,000 shares, I lost almost $2 a share. So I'm glad I took starter size and not full size on it. But you know, if it's not A quality, is it because every trade carries risk, and you might think you're only taking a starter, but then next thing you know, you're taking a huge loss, biggest loss of the month potentially, from a B quality setup and a starter size. You know, you look back at that and you think that probably was not worth it. What was I thinking there? So I think I just got a little eager and felt like I'd kind of missed the first part of the move, and so I just said, you know what, if it's squeezing up, and it was in that candle, I'll jump on. And it did squeeze up. Looks like maybe we were going to get a red to green, a break of VWAP, and then, you know, right back to the highs, but it was a risky trade. And this area right here is also risky. You can see how you've got these two kind of topping tail candles. And maybe it was partly just unlucky. You know, sometimes it is the luck of the draw. Maybe on another day this one would have worked. I don't know, but I think what made it B quality, and sometimes of course B quality or C quality setups will work and you'll get green on them. But I think, you know, what made this riskier, as I said, below VWAP, no news. You know, it kind of already done a topping tail false breakout. You know, it pulled back quite a bit on these two red candles. So it wasn't a smart one to try to take my first trade of the day on. So anyways, that's it for me. We'll shut it down green and live to trade another day. We'll be back at it first thing tomorrow morning. We'll hope for a better day. Those that watch the recap on YouTube, as a reminder, not doing the morning show right now as I'm focusing on our new students who have just joined over the last 2 weeks. And really for those that are in trader rehab, although today was the first of, well, our 6 days so far of trader rehab, our first where I was not able to find a really good solid trade. I hope that some of you were able to keep a level head and have the presence of mind better than me to not trade when there wasn't something that looked really good. So I had a little bit of if I was in trader rehab, I would say today was a relapse day, but you know, I'm trying to put myself in the mindset of being super focused, and yeah, I don't know. Anyway, so one of the things we talked about is self-correcting quickly. So, all right, you have a day that things go off the rails. So even as I sit here right now, I'm kind of like, okay, you know, I could go for ISIG right now, or I could go for BBLG. I could start actively trading one of these here at 11:15 and try to look for this to squeeze through 76. And I think, you know, all right, just a moment of kind of being able to reflect and say, I overtraded today, but I can stop doing that right now. And I will finish the day not at my high of day, not at my low of day, slightly green, which is good. And so kept my head above water, and I can come back tomorrow and try to be a little bit more disciplined than I was today. So I think that that's the smart move. And, you know, yeah, if ISIG ends up going to 28 or 30 without me, well, that's life. It is what it is. And yes, I suppose you're right that if I was still holding it, I would be coming back to green right now on it, just about. But I would have had to have held 6,000 shares down to a low of $22 from, well, let's just call it a 27 entry. So that would be 5 points, right? So 5 times 6, that's not the type of loss you really want to hold through. And there would have been no justification for holding except total FOMO, fear of just cutting the loss, because it was clearly red, broke the 200, it was breaking down. There was nothing that looked good about it. It got back up here, it popped back to VWAP here, and is somehow now back to where I was in this morning. But, you know, I mean, there's no, this is not a pattern that I would have been able to predict. You know, if I was holding it down here, I don't see any way that I would have been able to predict that it would have gone up to here. Now on a break of VWAP or, you know, a micro pullback, that's where I can start to predict that, okay, this is probably, if it resolves, it's going to make new highs. But, you know, when this failed, that was absolutely the right decision to cut the loss and move on to something else. And, you know, ties up buying power. Holding this in the red all that time would have tied up my buying power, and I might not have been able to take the trades I took on BBLG. So especially if you have a small account, I just try to be ruthless, cut the loss, let it go, move on to the next one. There's always going to be another one around the corner. And I think we can safely say today was not the best day of the year for momentum. We got a little bit, but not the best day. There will be much better days down the road, around the corner, and I might as well save my energy for those days than try to fight really, really hard today to get myself up $4 grand, $5 grand. I mean, realistically, if this was going to be a $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 green day, it would have already happened. So that's it for me. Best thing for me to do in a moment like this and on a day like this is to shut it all down, walk away, and not look at charts, not look at stocks again until tomorrow morning. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to shut it down. And just like that, out of sight, out of mind. And, you know, after you get away from your computer screen, even just for half an hour, if you can fight the impulse to refresh the stock price on your phone, if you can really let it go, you realize on a day like today, for me at least, you know what? Be grateful. There's people that will work all day long and they won't make $2,900. So there's no reason to feel bad about yourself. You went red, you got back to green. Why chase it to try to be up some amount that doesn't really matter all that much for one day? And I think that's a reminder for sure with day trading. You're never going to have one day that makes your career. It's just not going to happen. We don't trade. I mean, at least the way I trade, and of course then the way I teach and the way I teach momentum, no trade has the ability to give me, to let me retire. Like, I'm not going to have one trade and that's going to be, I'm retiring, or I'm taking the rest of the month off. I just have to show up every day and take a couple of small trades, get green, and then come back tomorrow. And, on days where we have good momentum, because of the share size I take, I can trade and make $10,000 or $15,000 or $20,000, maybe more, or of course lose that much. But, I'm not going to have a day that has the potential to give me a retirement or anything like that. But unfortunately, I do have the potential to take a day that could be really detrimental. Not just financially, but maybe even more importantly, emotionally. A day where, I just start FOMOing it. I mean, I could take 20,000 shares of ISIG, whatever price it is right now. I could go and take 20,000 shares of it. And if it drops 3 points, I'd be down 60 grand. Or, I don't know. I mean, if it was a cheaper stock and I could buy 100,000 shares of it, and next thing you know, it drops 2 points, I could be down 200 grand. And then you're looking at such a big loss. It would take weeks, maybe months to recoup it. That whole time you're dealing with the psychological baggage of the loss. And you know, that's all stuff that many of us at various points in our career will have to face in one way or another. But if you can avoid it, you'll be better off for it, absolutely. So that often just means shutting it down early and walking away when the writing is on the wall that this isn't going to be that great of a day. So that's it for me. I will be back at it first thing tomorrow, and hopefully we have some better opportunities. So again, reminder as I end the recap that trading is risky. Most beginner traders do lose money, and my results are not typical. So you should assume as a beginner that you'll lose. And with that assumption in mind, don't trade with money you can't afford to lose. Trade in a simulator before you put real money on the line, and take it slow. So we'll all come back tomorrow, and we'll try to do a little bit better tomorrow than we did today. Regardless of whether you finish green or red, we'll try to do better tomorrow.